Last night, the boy I once rocked to sleep beat me until I bled, all because his soup wasn't salted enough. As I wiped my blood off the kitchen floor with an old towel, he simply walked away, closing his bedroom door like nothing had happened. To him, striking his own mother was as ordinary as breathing. This morning, every muscle ached. Bruises stained my arms, and a cut on my lip burned every time I tried to speak. But none of that compared to the deeper wound, the humiliation of realizing that my only son, the one I sacrificed everything for, now saw me as nothing more than his servant. At 5 a.m., I dragged myself out of bed like always. Ethan was already seated at the table in his perfect gray suit, scrolling through his phone. Without glancing at me, he muttered, "Breakfast. I'm late for a meeting." Not a word about the night before. Not a trace of guilt. I made his usual, scrambled eggs with cheese, 2 slices of toasted bread, and bitter black coffee. Everything had to be exact. If anything was wrong, I'd pay the price. While he ate, the front door opened. Savannah, his wife, glided in wearing a light green dress and her usual forced smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Davis," she said sweetly, the way she always did when Ethan was watching. I wanted to tell her the truth, that her husband's hands had left bruises on my back and that I no longer slept through the night, but instead, I smiled and whispered, "I'm fine, dear." Then Ethan handed me something. "Here, Mom," he said, flashing that fake smile he saved for company. "This makeup will help cover those scratches you got when you tripped last night." Tripped. That's what he called the blows that made me bleed. The foundation was expensive, the kind sold in glossy magazines. Probably paid for with my retirement money, which he controlled completely. Savannah beamed. "You're so thoughtful, Ethan, always taking care of your mom." If she only knew. After breakfast, Ethan leaned close and whispered, "Remember our talk, Mom. One word about what happens here, and you'll regret it. No one will believe an old woman anyway." They left together, the perfect couple in their black luxury car, bought, of course, with my savings. When silence returned, I finally let the tears fall, not of sadness, but of rage. Because I knew something had to change. But I didn't yet know how far my son would go to keep me silent. The next morning, a single phone call from Ethan's office will expose a truth darker than the bruises on my skin. By mid-morning, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at a stranger. My lip was swollen, the corner split open. A faint bruise darkened my cheek, and my eyes looked hollow, the eyes of someone who had forgotten what peace felt like. I opened the box of makeup Ethan had given me. The foundation was smooth, expensive, meant to conceal pain, not heal it. I dabbed it over the marks, watching the evidence of last night fade under a layer of beige. That had become my morning ritual: hide, smile, obey. When I stepped into the kitchen, the house already smelled of Savannah's perfume, sweet but suffocating. She was sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone. "Just coffee today," she said with a smile that never touched her eyes. Ethan looked up from his laptop, his tone sharp. "Savannah's bringing her friends for lunch. Make something impressive: seafood, salad, dessert, wine. You've got $60. Make it enough." $60. For a meal for 5 people. I nodded quietly while my hands trembled. He leaned closer. And don't forget, Mom, cover up properly. You wouldn't want Savannah's friends asking questions. When they left, the house fell silent again. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the $60 bills, feeling smaller than I ever had. I went shopping, stretching every coin. Frozen shrimp instead of fresh. Cheap wine disguised in a pretty bottle. Pasta on sale. Every choice a reminder that I had no control over my own life anymore. At the checkout line, I heard a familiar voice. Monica, dear. It was Clarice, my neighbor, a widow with kind eyes and a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Are you all right? I haven't seen you in weeks, she said, studying my face. Oh, I've just been busy, I lied, clutching the grocery bag tighter. Her gaze lingered on my lip despite the makeup. That looks painful. Did you fall? Yes, I said quickly, forcing a laugh. You know how clumsy I am. Clarice smiled gently. If you ever need anything, my door's open. Those simple words nearly broke me. It had been so long since someone had spoken to me with real kindness. For a second, I wanted to tell her everything, about the bruises, the money, the fear, but Ethan's voice echoed in my mind. If you ever open your mouth. So I smiled and said, thank you, Clarice. Back home, I cooked like a machine, cleaning, arranging, perfecting every detail before Savannah's friends arrived. But my hands shook the entire time. Something deep inside me whispered that today, something was going to change. When Savannah's guests arrive, one familiar face among them will shatter the lie I've been living for years. The doorbell rang right at noon. I wiped my hands on my apron, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Savannah stood there looking flawless, surrounded by 3 of her elegant friends, women who smelled of money and judgment. Their laughter filled the air like perfume. Mrs. Davis, Savannah said in that overly sweet tone, meet my colleagues, Beatrice, Brenda, and Evelyn. When I heard the last name, my heart nearly stopped. Evelyn Brooks. It couldn't be. But as soon as our eyes met, I knew it was my sister. We hadn't spoken in over 2 years, not since a bitter argument after our mother's funeral. Yet there she was, standing in my hallway, pretending not to know me. Evelyn was always sharper than me, she instantly understood the situation. Her polite smile didn't reach her eyes. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Davis, she said smoothly, her voice steady though I saw the shock flicker beneath it. Your daughter-in-law has told us so much about you. I invited them into the dining room. The table looked perfect, the good china, the polished glasses, a vase of flowers hiding the cracks in my heart. They ate. They laughed. They complimented the food. And the entire time, Evelyn's eyes never left me. The shrimp pasta is delicious, Beatrice said. Thank you, I murmured, forcing a smile. Savannah added proudly, Mom always takes care of everything. It's like having a live-in maid, but with love. A maid. That's what I'd become. Evelyn's fork froze halfway to her mouth. I could see the fury flash in her eyes, but she stayed quiet. So, Mrs. Davis, Evelyn said suddenly, what did you do before retirement? You seem so organized. I worked as an executive secretary for 40 years at Sullivan and Associates, I said, a trace of pride sneaking into my voice. I retired 3 years ago. Evelyn smiled knowingly.
Ah.
Sullivan and Associates, I interned there during law school. Excellent firm. Savannah quickly interrupted, her smile tightening. But now Mom is retired and relaxing. Ethan takes care of everything, finances, bills, the house. He's such a devoted son. That was it. Evelyn knew. Her eyes hardened, but she kept her composure. When I went to the kitchen to serve dessert, Evelyn followed. Do you need any help? She asked quietly, glancing at the bruise peeking from my collar. No, thank you, I said, trying to sound calm. Monica, she whispered, using my name for the first time. Are you all right? Before I could answer, I heard the door open. Ethan was home early. His cheerful voice filled the house, the perfect son returning from work. He kissed Savannah on the cheek, shook hands with the guests, and placed his hand on my shoulder. I stiffened. His fingers pressed into my skin, a hidden warning behind his charming grin. You did great, Mom, he said softly, too close to my ear. Don't ruin it now. But when the phone rings later that night, and a voice from Ethan's office asks to see me urgently, I realize my son's empire of lies is about to collapse that night. The phone rang while I was cleaning the dishes from Savannah's perfect lunch. Mrs. Davis, a man's voice said. I'm calling from your son's company. We've noticed some irregular transfers involving your bank account. Could you come in tomorrow afternoon? For a second, I couldn't breathe. My account? Ethan handled everything. Yes, I whispered. I'll be there. The next day, I sat across from a man in a suit whose nameplate read Adrian Castillo, senior accountant. His expression was serious, almost apologetic. Mrs. Davis, he began, opening a folder filled with printouts. Your son has been using company funds and funneling them into your joint bank account. More than $50,000 have been moved in the last 6 months. My stomach dropped. No. I didn't know anything about that. He controls all my finances. I believe you, he said gently. But unless you file a statement clearing yourself, you could be seen as an accomplice. When I left that office, the world seemed to tilt beneath me. My son wasn't just abusive, he was a criminal. And he'd used me as his shield. By the time I got home, Ethan was waiting. Where were you? He demanded. I was at your office, I said quietly. They know about the money. His face froze for a moment, just long enough for me to see fear. Then the mask returned. You don't know what you're talking about, he said, stepping closer. You're confused. $50,000, I said, louder this time. They showed me everything. His jaw tightened. If you open your mouth, I'll ruin you. This house. My name's on it too. I can have you out by morning. For the first time in years, I didn't step back. I'm not afraid of you anymore. He raised his hand, but before he could strike, a knock came at the door. It was Clarice, my neighbor, holding a casserole dish and a concerned look. Behind her stood Evelyn, pretending to be a casual visitor. Is everything okay, Mrs. Davis? Clarice asked. Ethan's smile returned instantly. Everything's fine, he said. My mother just burned dinner. But Clarice didn't move. Her eyes scanned my face, then shifted to Evelyn's. We'll stop by tomorrow, Evelyn said firmly. Maybe around 10. When they left, Ethan slammed the door so hard the walls shook. This isn't over, he hissed. Tomorrow, you're coming to the bank. You'll sign whatever I tell you to. You'll take back every word, or you'll regret it. That night, I didn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I saw a faint light flicker near the garden. It was Clarice, setting up a small camera hidden among the bushes, pointed straight at my window. By dawn, I knew what I had to do. I packed my purse, took my documents, and met Clarice outside. Her voice was steady. Monica, I recorded everything he said. We have proof. Let's end this, today. For the first time in years, I felt something powerful rising inside me. Not fear. Not shame. Freedom. And as we drove toward the district attorney's office, I realized that this story, the story of my survival, was only just beginning. If you were in Monica's place, would you find the courage to fight back? Tell me in the comments, and let me know from which city you're watching this story.